next talk, which is another friend and partner, Dan DeCloss from PlexTrac, which I think, Bryson, you all met at a conference and just like hit it off and started doing stuff together, no?
Yeah, that was Wild West Hackin' Fest a couple of years ago, and we're there doing our Red Team arcade game. We got all this unicorn stuff going on. We're just being our usual jovial, silly selves. And I don't remember who was with you, Dan, but I remember you. And you guys are at the booth next to us. And I remember I looked over at Mash, who's now running Atomic Red Team over at Red Canary. And I was just like, hey, their thing says Purple Team in the title. We should go talk to them. And then here we are years later, having built quite a friendship as well as a partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's crazy to think back, how long ago that was, and yet how quickly it's gone by. So it's been fun. So.
Yeah, no, awesome. And so glad you're here, Dan. A lot of people we talk to kind of get the vulnerability scanning part, and vulnerability management is hard. I know your tool originally was for that. And now you've moved into the detection and the reporting of Red Team and Purple Team exercises. So really looking forward to your experiences with your clients, your customers, and some new stuff that you're going to show off that Ben almost gave it away. I don't think he gave it away, but it was close. So we're excited for it. So go ahead and take it away, and we'll chat with you in about 30 minutes.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, no, thanks for inviting me. It's been great to be on the conference thus far. So, and thanks Ben for teeing us up. We have a good partnership with Ben and his team over at OnDefend as well. But yeah, so as PlexTrac's mission is all around like staying focused on getting the real work done in cybersecurity. We've always focused on the reporting aspects and how to track and manage results. As a security program or as a security industry, we're great at identifying a lot of issues, right? And providing a lot of data. But at the end of the day, somebody has to go and actually fix these things. And we actually have to show progress in how we're getting better as organizations. And that comes down to some of the least fun aspects of pen testing, and purple teaming is actually doing the reporting aspects. And so that's obviously what PlexTrac's mission is, and why we really have enjoyed our partnership with Scythe, is that you can get this great automation and the great simulation, and then have a way to feed that in from a reporting perspective and a tracking perspective. So really today's session with us is really geared around how do we integrate all this cool data that's coming out from all these simulations into a nice, easy way to manage these results, right? We already did my introduction, but I'm the founder and CEO of PlexTrac. You'll have these slides so you can read through these later, because I want to get through as much of the slides as we can so we can kind of just show off how to do stuff. But really want to talk around like how do we operationalize these campaigns, and how do we centralize the results so that we have consistent metrics that we can be tracking and being able to show our progress over time. And then I want to highlight some of the cool integrations that we have now with Scythe and PlexTrac. We've always been able, as Ben showed you, we've always been able to import those results into a report within PlexTrac. But now with our new Runbooks module that we launched in the fall, we can now bring those results into Runbooks, and you can now have that red and blue team capabilities as well, and still have the ultimate result being a nice clean report that you can either deliver to your customers if you're a consulting firm, or if you're an internal pen testing team or a blue team that's spun up or launching a purple teaming capability. You can bring those metrics into your platform within PlexTrac and be able to highlight your progress to your leadership as well as to your team. So when we talk about like operationalizing the campaigns, we've already talked about why the detection outcomes are very vital, and these metrics around time-based issues is really important. So being able to organize your data consistently is necessary from the blue team side as well as the red team side, and it's great to hear that more of these automation tools are going to continue to integrate with the detection capabilities through the SIM and through the other logging devices, so that you really can have as real-time data. But within each campaign, you need to be disciplined with these results. So, as you can see here, you want to be able to say like, hey, we detected this, but we also logged it. and what was the delta between when it was logged and when it was detected. George was mentioning this on a previous call, that these are important metrics to be able to identify. So having a way to log this information is really critical, and staying organized as you go throughout each campaign, and being able to specify, hey, here's what we found, or here's what the red team identified, here's what this simulation from Scythe identified, and here were the timestamps according to when these things started executing. And as we continue to grow as a purple teaming industry, right, these time-based metrics are critical, right? From the beginning in the IR world, we've had this mean time to response and mean time to detection metrics that really could only be identified forensically, right? Once you knew an attack had occurred, you had to go back and see where those first log entries were dated. But you didn't still have the identification of when the campaign or when the attack actually started, when those specific commands were actually executed at the beginning. You only have the first time that it was logged as a timestamp. So at least with the purple teaming and continuing to do campaign over campaign over campaign, you can now say, hey, we actually executed this command at this set time. It didn't log until 20 minutes later. So now you have a little bit better metrics to identify, well, when we see that we have this logged evidence, you've got maybe a 20-minute delta as to when that might have actually occurred. So you can now have a little bit better identification of when you might start looking for more activity as opposed to that very first logged item. So anyway, the goal is to just continue to operationalize these activities to be consistent with how you're executing them and defining those goals. And then reporting comes down to an important piece of the puzzle, which I'm going to show you here in a bit, of what you can use PlexTrac, with Scythe to do, but being able to categorize and prioritize your results. So like we've seen, not every command that gets executed in a purple team engagement needs to be considered a finding or a risk, but there are some that actually do, and some that require the blue team to go and say, hey, I need to start fixing these. So you can categorize those, and you can say, hey, this is a critical finding, and then you can aggregate those across different penetration tests. You can aggregate those across different vulnerability scans and different risks that have been identified through different types of assessments to really have a better view and a better picture of how you're making progress in your trajectory of fixing these issues over time. And one other thing that's important about the purple teaming exercises is not just, hey, once we've got all the data and we've specified that we found it or did it, now we've got this report. We actually need to track how we're resolving the issues. So being able to assign these items out for remediation and seeing what kind of issues the people on the blue team side are having in terms of resolving these problems. And being able to collaborate on how should we fix this? What is the best way to engineer a detection mechanism and a blocking mechanism for this, so that we're not prohibiting the business from conducting normal operations, but still being able to prevent any kind of risk from executing in our environment. So having a way to collaborate on the resolution, and then validating that these resolutions that we've put forth have worked, right? All critical pieces of this workflow that start to get lost as he's like, hey, I've got all these great results. We've done this purple teaming exercise, but now what are we supposed to do? You've got to have a way to actually take these results and make meaningful metrics out of them at the end of the engagement. So things like being able to compare how you're starting to trend over time, being able to compare what were the results, what campaigns resulted in findings from a previous campaign versus this campaign, what was working, what wasn't, are we making progress on resolving these issues? All important things to be able to answer to your leadership and to your risk management team, so that not only do we have all this data that we can now actually resolve over time, right? So within PlexTrac, I'm going to show off kind of like, what you can do to get to a nice clean report for a single campaign, and then be able to use the tracking mechanism to resolve these issues. We'll show off the new integration that we have in our runbooks, and being able to then collaborate on these findings over time, and submitting different engagements for each different report, and being able to aggregate that in our analytics, so that you can actually start to show show growth and progress as you execute campaign after campaign. So we'll dive into there. It's interesting. Ben and I did not coordinate on like highlighting the Maze ransomware, but we know that that's been a hot topic. So I'm actually going to be demoing the Maze ransomware runbook as well. So within PlexTrac, if you're familiar with our runbooks module, you can specify, hey, I want to simulate or emulate certain activities, right? And these can be methodologies. These can be adversarial emulations. So when we look at our runbooks, we've set up this Maze ransomware emulation plan, right? We haven't specified any procedures, but we'll assign it to a specific client, and we'll go ahead and tag this. We'll tag this as a Maze ransomware campaign. So then we can begin this new engagement. We see we don't have any procedures, and this is the new exciting stuff that may seem small, but it's actually really important. So if we were to come in and say, hey, I want to select this campaign that I exported out of Scythe, right? So I'm going to go ahead and submit this. And so what we're doing is we're taking all that information from the Scythe campaign and inserting it into the runbook so that we can now specify from the blue team that, hey, we've gone in and detected this, or these are the procedures that worked or didn't work from Scythe's perspective. And then what was the blue team able to accomplish from detection or identifying if it was forensically logged or whatnot. So these are all the different campaigns that, all the different procedures that were executed during the campaign. I'll highlight one, that obviously should stand out as a very serious one, and this is the execution of it. We see that it was successful according to Scythe. So then when we come in on the blue team side, we want to start to specify like, hey, we were able to forensically log this, right? And I can go ahead and I can attach the different logs, right? So I can say, okay, these were the logs that we identified out of our whatever SIM it is. We'll go ahead and include that in the report. We're also going to specify that this is a finding at the end of the day, because just because a procedure executed and was successful doesn't necessarily mean that it poses a risk or a vulnerability. In this instance, it probably does, right? So we want to specify the difference between a procedure that's executing successfully and a finding in the report. So we can also say like, hey, okay, so we know that if we look at the red team timestamp, here's the general timestamp of what when we know that it was started and executed. We can say logged at this time, right? And we can specify the timestamp as to when it was logged. And let's just say it was maybe we were lucky and it was like 7 seconds after 7 seconds after it was logged, right? That'd be great, right? So you can save that, and now we start to have this information that we can now specify, more granular metrics as we move forward in these campaigns. We can filter through all these different all the different procedures and identify whether or not they were successful or not. I think in this simulation we specified that the very last one shutting down the Scythe controller failed. That was just us mocking the data so that you can see that when you import this in from Scythe, it does indicate whether that procedure was successful or not, so that the blue team can come in and start to say like, hey, we don't have any evidence. We don't know why it didn't work, but it didn't, right? And so we can mark this as completed, that we're done reviewing this one. We don't need to include that one as a finding. And so you can see you can run through all of the different procedures from when the Scythe campaign finished, and the blue team can come in and specify what else was working and what wasn't. As Ben mentioned before, we also have a deep integration with BlindSpot, so they're being able to pump this data in as well. So as those blue team procedures get automatically detected and specified, that information will come in as well. So we've executed the campaign, and that's great. But now we actually got to do something with this, right? So within PlexTrac, you can submit this engagement, and now we get to this final report. So what happens in the background here is it's clarifying what items are findings, what items didn't we actually specify was a finding versus what is a report procedure. So you can see here that we identified one finding from the report. And what we now need to do as our consultant or a red team engineer or a purple team engineer is to say like, hey, this actually is a critical issue. So we're going to go ahead and specify what we should do, right? And we'll just say fix this for now. So now we've identified, hey, this actually is a critical finding. So we're starting to categorize these issues accordingly. And we'll go ahead and tag this finding specifically to Maze as well. At the report level, we tagged it as Maze, and we'll go ahead and say like, hey, this finding is related to the Maze ransomware. One other important thing to note here is that you're saying we only have one finding that came as a result of that campaign. But here are all the procedures that actually were executed. So it's a very similar view to what you saw in the engagement, but now it's part of the report as well. So we can see, hey, these were the outcomes that we saw from each of these executed procedures. And this becomes very valuable information as we start to talk about metrics and analytics over time. So one other thing that's important about the reporting aspect, that this is really obviously where PlexTrac focuses a heavy amount, is on being able to not only identify the findings, but like let's have a narrative around what we actually conducted. So you can pick from different templates in PlexTrac. So we went ahead and created a template just simply around here's what Maze is and here's how the emulation plan is executed, right? So here's just a Maze ransomware summary. You can have nice graphics and visuals in the report. We took this straight from the Threat Thursday, this adversary emulation plan straight from George and the Scythe team's Threat Thursday for Maze. So we have this nice view of like, here's all that is getting conducted and executed. This makes its way into this nice report. If you're familiar with PlexTrac, you can export into custom Word templates as well. So if you need to deliver this to somebody else, you certainly can. But the whole goal is that we have a central place to document all this information. And then we can specify like, okay, I need to actually start tracking who's going to be fixing this. So let's say, hey, we're moving this in process. Dan, this is all you. If I can spell. Good luck, buddy. And so now we start to get this timeline view of how things are actually being worked on, right? And this is the important aspects of, we've gotten this data, we've gotten this great information, we've identified that these are risks in the environment, but how do we then go and proceed to resolve the issues, right? So this is where this integration with Scythe and PlexTrac really comes in handy, is being able to specify not only from the beginning, here's all that Scythe found, here's what the blue team inserted, here's what the red and blue team together identified as findings, and what should be prioritized from a risk perspective. But then we can actually start assigning these issues out for resolution, and ultimately, we can close it out, right? So we said, hey, we're good, something like this. And so now, if we come over to analytics, which is an important aspect, we can start to see different trends, right? So let's say we want to see all the trends of findings related to Maze. So we can see we're maybe not doing so hot. We've closed out a couple issues that are critical, but it's taken 8.5 days on average to close those out. So what do we need to do to improve that metric? Well, let's look at like what findings constituted that, and these are findings specifically related to Maze, just from all the campaigns or any kind of vulnerability that has been associated and tagged with Maze. What we can also do is we can also go into the specific reports and these represent those different campaigns that we've executed related to Maze as well. So we've only had one finding that's open at the moment, related to a client. But we can also see that here was that specific Maze ransomware report as well. So now maybe we want to specify like, hey, let's go back in and let's do another Maze ransomware campaign, and we can go ahead and say, I want to be able to compare it, from last time to this time. So if we go ahead and begin a new engagement. We can import again. We'll import a different Maze execution just to kind of show like here's what did and didn't work. And then I think I've got, nope, I don't. So as this is waiting, basically the notion of being able to now compare a different run of the campaign and the results, and starting to show, the progress of not only the procedures, but also the execution. So maybe we go ahead and just specify this one as a finding. And we go ahead and submit this engagement. So now we have two runs of the same Maze ransomware campaign. We specified one finding in each, and the first one was a critical. This one we'll go ahead and mark as a a medium, and then we can. Oh, I know why that other one didn't show up, because I closed it out. So if we say this is good. We now have the ability to really manage the workflows around these issues, right? So if we come back into one of these, and let's just go reopen this just for monkeying with metrics perspectives, but now we can come back into our analytics, right? And we can specify like, hey, I've got 2 campaigns now within the same client. The first one found 2 issues. One was a critical issue. One was a medium issue. The second one was now a medium issue. So we can start to see just visually like, hey, we're starting to make progress. What are the issues that that we need to continue to resolve to show these trends in a better direction. So the important aspects around tracking and reporting are the least fun part of engagements like pen testing and purple teaming, but they're vitally important, right? And they help us communicate to our leadership. Here's what's working. Here's what's not. Here's the progress that we're making, related to actual adversarial emulations. And so that's the exciting part about syncing Scythe with PlexTrac and being able to have the full workflow from start to finish of not only did we identify the issue, we've prioritized it, we've remediated it, and then we can go and continue to show progress in our security posture. So, well, I guess I kind of ran through that really quickly, George, but happy to collaborate a little bit more. I'll jump back over to the slide deck, but we've loved collaborating with the Scythe team. There's definitely more to come. Related to the PlexTrac integration, we'll be integrating with the API, and as we've discussed, having deeper time-based metrics as we move forward.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're definitely on the same page there, and awesome presentation. Again, awesome stuff with the Runbook integrations, and you hinted at some of the other stuff that we're working on. So yeah, like the reason we documented the API was to be able to use and leverage tools like yours a lot better, especially when we have customers are using, they're kind of maturing to this spot, right? They're already doing that vulnerability scanning and management. They've got PlexTrac for that. And now the next step is, focusing on the people and process. And as we've been talking about pretty much all day, right? The time metric, right? It's really where the industry is going. So really happy to see that. We have a lot of clients that use both Scythe and PlexTrac. So they're obviously benefiting from it. And, the fact that we actually listen to our customers and see where they're going and help them mature is so much fun. I really love it. So thanks again. If anyone has questions, please do post them on Discord. I don't see anything I don't see any questions. And I do want to mention though that Maze it's a great threat to do. So Ben did it, you did it, and later on today we're gonna have folks from Binary Defense also running through Maze and then doing the detection and response part, right? The more Sysmon and Elastic and all that. And the reason that Maze is a great plan to start out with, it's actually something we put in our POV environments when someone's demoing, is because it does all the top TTPs that we see out there in the wild, right? It does command and control through HTTPS. It executes with Run DLL 32. It does scheduled task. It does registry modifications. It exfiltrates traffic. It encrypts data. It deletes data. Right. So it's the top TTPs all in one. And, you could kind of go through it, right? Some customers are like, oh, scheduled task, I caught that. It's like, great. What about the other 40 TTP? So it's really cool. So that was great. let me see. Ben here said, oh, there we go. So Ben just validated what I mentioned, that with his consulting clients, when they run Maze, it's frequently not detected by their customers, right? And of course, every organization is different, right? And we got to see where they are. But yeah, emulating things that you is probably a good place to start. I also saw some folks on Twitter talking about the fact that they have, you know, thousands of Jira tickets and don't know where to focus on, and how, like, where do we start, right? Start with these, right? Start with what we're seeing the most actors do. And, you know, building just a detection for scheduled tasks. If they do that early on and that one alert triggers a response, like, you're already doing better than where you were, you know, before. So it's fantastic. Great talk, and good stuff as usual. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, thanks for putting this on. You know, we're enjoying being part of the conference.
I got a question. What's next on the roadmap? Where are you taking PlexTrac next?
Yeah, so definitely, you know, more automated API integrations, like we mentioned, you know, with the Scythe API, and bringing that stuff into Runbooks, enhancing our metrics capabilities, you know, based on those time-based and coverage maps of, you know, we're debating on how much we go into the MITRE, you know, heat map, because MITRE is just continuing to get so big. So we've got some new initial designs around, you know, a little bit different approach to being able to show coverage, but then you're being able to, like, have more visuals around different campaigns and what they covered. And if you consolidate all the campaigns, have we shown coverage throughout the entire matrix, right? And so that's definitely some things on our agenda for this year, are enhancing the API integrations, enhancing the analytics capabilities, so that you have more real-time coverage in detection, and showing how you're detecting these things, what components are working and what not, right? I think that's an important aspect, is like, hey, within Maze, what should have picked this up? Should it have been, you know, the firewall or the EDR, or a combination of those, and being able to show metrics on what components actually were working. So those are the things we're really focused on for this year on the reporting side.
Awesome. No, we're excited. So cool. Thank you, Dan, again.